Malik had been through loss. He had buried his mother, been abandoned by his father, and stitched his heart back together after betrayal in college. He knew pain, but nothing could have prepared him for the pain waiting behind that hotel room door. Just minutes earlier, he was the happiest man in the world, smiling for group photos, hugging his aunties, trying to keep his hands from shaking as guests poured into the reception hall downstairs. He was finally a husband. And the woman he married? Amira, the only person since his mother who made him feel safe. The ballroom was glowing, the music was playing, the cake was ready, but Malik was missing. He was upstairs, looking for his missing cufflink. Room 412, his brother's room. He remembered the number because it was the same one from his old football jersey in high school, a number he used to call Lucky. He knocked, no answer. The door was unlocked. He stepped in, and everything stopped. Amira, on her knees, in her white wedding dress, head buried in the lap of his older brother. Malik couldn't speak. His eyes filled with tears instantly. His throat locked up. His bride didn't even move. She looked up at him, shocked, but didn't stop. His brother just stared at him, cold, silent. The same brother who raised him when their mom died. The same brother who helped him get his first job. The same brother who said, "You deserve real love, bro," the night before the wedding. Malik stepped back slowly. He didn't yell. He tried not to cry. He just closed the door and walked away. Downstairs, guests were still dancing, laughing, drinking, toasting to forever. But Malik had vanished, and when he returned an hour later, he wasn't the same man. Before we go any further, drop where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click the subscribe button right now, because you don't want to be that person who watches a story this real and still walks away like it meant nothing. If for some reason you're still not subscribing, do us one favor, go to the comments and let us know why. Seriously, if this was your brother and this was your bride, how would you even begin to explain that kind of betrayal? Because what happened next would silence the entire wedding and leave a scar no apology could ever fix. To understand the weight of what Malik saw behind that hotel room door, you first have to understand the man himself. Malik grew up on the south side of Columbus, Ohio, raised by a single mother in a one-bedroom apartment where the heat barely worked in winter and the fridge always seemed to hum louder when there wasn't much inside. His father left when he was 5, just enough time for Malik to remember his smell, but not long enough to learn his voice. It was the kind of abandonment that stains you, the kind that doesn't just teach you to live without love, it teaches you not to expect it at all. His mother, Denise, worked 2 jobs, nights at a nursing home, weekends cleaning offices downtown. She never complained, not once. Malik used to sit by the window with a blanket around his shoulders, waiting for her to come home just so he could warm his little hands inside her tired palms. That was home to him, not the apartment, not the neighborhood, just her. And when she passed away his senior year of high school, Malik felt like the only safe place he'd ever known had vanished. He went off to college with nothing but a trash bag full of clothes and an academic scholarship. And even though he smiled a lot, Malik was different. He didn't drink, he didn't party, he didn't trust easily, but still somehow love found him, or at least that's what he thought. Her name was Brianna. She was soft-spoken, wore her hair natural, and loved gospel music. She made him feel things he hadn't felt since his mother was alive. And just like that, she broke him. He found out through a friend that she had been cheating on him, with his roommate, for months. That's when Malik changed. He didn't become bitter. No. He became quiet, careful, guarded. He promised himself that the next time he gave his heart to someone, they would have to earn it. And then came Amira. He met her on a random Tuesday afternoon at a networking event in Cleveland. She wasn't the loudest in the room, but she was the most noticeable. A fitted navy blue pantsuit, red bottom heels, silver chain, and confidence that made the air shift when she walked past. Amira had a kind of grace you couldn't buy. She didn't just speak, she spoke with intention. Her words were slow, thoughtful, almost hypnotic. She asked Malik questions no one ever bothered to ask. About his mother, about his dreams, about how he managed to stay soft in a world that constantly tried to harden him. And for the first time in years, he let someone in. Their first date lasted 6 hours. Their second one, she met his brother. And from that moment, everything moved fast. Birthdays together, holidays with his small but tight-knit family. Amira was the kind of woman who knew how to make everyone feel seen. His aunties adored her. His cousins followed her on Instagram like she was a celebrity. Even his brother, the same one Malik always felt he had to impress, started giving him that look like, "You really found her." She became his peace, his safe place, as he called her. But even in all that beauty, something always felt just slightly off. Not loud, not obvious, just off. She never let him touch her phone, said she valued privacy. She always answered questions, but only just enough. Her past was blurry, her childhood vague, her old relationships never really explained, just labeled as toxic and done. And sometimes, just sometimes, Malik would catch her staring at his brother a little too long during family dinners. Nothing overt, nothing anyone else would notice. But Malik did. Still, he said nothing. Because when you've been lonely most of your life, and you finally find something that feels like love, you hold on to it, even if something in your gut is whispering, "Let go." But he didn't. He held on. He proposed to her on one knee in front of 80 people at his birthday dinner, and she said yes with tears in her eyes, and for a moment he believed he was finally free from heartbreak, finally building the life his mother used to pray he'd have. But nothing can prepare a man for what he saw behind that hotel room door. If you're still watching and you haven't subscribed yet, let me ask you something. Why are you hesitating? You're already emotionally here. This story isn't just a story. For someone out there, it's real life. And if you're choosing not to subscribe, we challenge you. Go to the comments right now and tell us why. Be honest. Because the next part of Malik's story might just shake you in ways you're not ready for. And if you are ready, stay with us. Because what happened next is what turned a groom into something else entirely. It started at church. Not in some over-the-top movie moment. No bright spotlight. No choirs singing in the background. Just a normal Sunday in April. Malik was sitting 2 rows from the back like he always did. Quiet. Observant, half listening, half thinking about work. Then she walked in. Amira. She wasn't loud. She didn't wear anything flashy, but her presence pulled at something in him. She wore a simple olive green dress and carried a leather-bound Bible that looked older than both of them. She sat alone, 2 rows ahead, and when the choir started singing, she closed her eyes like she was praying with her entire soul. He watched her more than he should have. But it wasn't until 3 weeks later, at his cousin's baby shower, that he got the courage to speak to her. Turns out they had mutual friends. Small world. She remembered him from church, said she noticed him too, said he seemed quiet but present. That sentence alone sat with him for weeks. From there, things moved slowly, but intentionally. Amira didn't rush. She said she'd been in relationships that moved too fast before, and this time she wanted to build, not just feel. Malik respected that. They started with phone calls, long ones, the kind where you fall asleep with the phone still pressed to your cheek. She asked him about his mother, about his dreams, about what scared him most in life. He told her everything. For the first time in years, he wanted to be seen. Their first date was at a bookstore cafe. She ordered peppermint tea. He didn't even drink tea, but he ordered the same. For 5 hours, they didn't even touch their phones. She talked about her love for poetry. He opened up about how he still writes letters to his mother on her birthday. He fell hard, and so did everyone else. Malik brought her to Thanksgiving that year. His family couldn't get enough of her. She helped cook. She complimented the aunties on their wigs. She held Malik's baby cousin like she'd known the child for years. His uncle even pulled Malik aside and said, "Boy, don't let that one go." But even with all the charm, Amira had layers. She spoke openly about faith, family, and her career, but when it came to her past, things got murky. Malik once asked her why she didn't talk much about her childhood. She said, "Some things are better left where they happened." When he asked how her last relationship ended, she looked down, paused, and simply said, "He wasn't who I thought he was." And that was it. No name, no explanation. She never showed him pictures of old friends. She said she didn't keep them. She never mentioned an ex by name, never talked about how she healed. Just vague phrases like, "God brought me through." Malik took it as emotional maturity. He thought, maybe she just doesn't live in the past. He respected her silence. He trusted her boundaries. But maybe he should have trusted his gut. Because there were moments, small ones, that didn't sit right. Like the way she always kept her phone face down even when it buzzed. Or how she took phone calls outside, no matter what time it was. Or the time he caught her deleting a text before she let him borrow her phone for directions. She laughed it off. "I just hate clutter." Malik didn't press it. He told himself, love means trust. Love means patience. But there was one thing that ate at him, no matter how hard he tried to ignore it. His brother, Idris. From the very first introduction, Idris had been a little too interested. Too many compliments. Too many harmless side conversations. That kind of familiarity that you can't quite explain, but you feel. At a family cookout, Malik found them laughing together behind the garage. Nothing inappropriate, nothing obvious. But still, it felt off. He asked Amira about it later. She brushed it off with a smile. "He's just friendly. You know how Idris is." And it was true. Idris was friendly, charismatic, loud. Everybody loved him. Malik had looked up to him his entire life. After their mom passed, it was Idris who stepped up, who paid bills, cooked meals, helped Malik finish high school. So Malik brushed it off. "Don't be insecure," he told himself. "You finally found someone good. Don't ruin it by overthinking." But what Malik didn't know was what had already started, right under his nose, right behind his back. The truth wasn't just inconvenient, it was life-altering. And if you're still here watching, let me ask you again, why haven't you subscribed yet? Because this isn't just a story, it's a warning. To anyone who's ever trusted too soon, to anyone who ignored their instincts just to keep the peace. This next part might just hit too close to home. If you can feel that ache in your chest as you listen to this, don't scroll past it. Don't be numb. Click the subscribe button now, because the deeper we go, the more painful the truth becomes. And if you still choose not to subscribe, don't just disappear. Drop a comment and tell us why. Be real. Because Malik had everything on the line, and no idea what he was about to lose. Love has a way of making you see what you want to see, and for Malik, that was both his comfort and his curse. By this point, they were 6 months into their engagement, planning colors, tasting cakes, touring venues. On the outside, everything looked perfect. Amira was glowing, posting Bible verses on Instagram with captions like, "A man who finds a wife finds a good thing," and tagging Malik in every other post. Their engagement photos were framed in both their homes. Their story was becoming the type that made people believe in second chances. But something had shifted. It started small. The phone behavior got weirder. Amira always had it on her. Always. It was either in her hand or under her pillow. Malik couldn't remember the last time he saw her leave it on the kitchen counter or charge it across the room like she used to. And the notifications, they stopped showing up. Where there used to be previews of texts, now her screen just read, "New message." Malik noticed, but again, he said nothing. You don't question the person you're about to build a life with. Not unless you're ready for the answers. Then came the late-night calls. They weren't constant, just consistent enough to feel wrong. She'd get up from bed whispering, "It's my cousin, family stuff," and step outside, pacing on the porch or down the hallway. He asked once, "Why does your cousin only call at midnight?" She smiled and said, "That's when she feels safe. Some people don't have peace until the world goes quiet." It sounded poetic enough to believe, and Malik wanted to believe her. Then came the girls' nights out, once a week, same 3 women, or so she said. He trusted her, but something inside kept tugging at him. Check her story, call one of the girls, just ask. But he didn't, because he didn't want to become that guy, the one who accuses, who questions everything, who ends up pushing a good woman away just because he can't shake old wounds. But deep down, he knew something was wrong. The moment that broke him came on a random Wednesday evening. Malik came home early from work. He walked in quietly, trying not to scare her. She was on the couch, barefoot, legs curled up, giggling at her phone. She didn't hear him at first. Then she gasped and quickly turned the phone over. He froze. "Who was that?" he asked. She blinked. "Nobody." He took a breath. "Let me see." She hesitated. "Why? You don't trust me now?" "Just let me see the last text," he said, already knowing he shouldn't have to ask, already knowing the request would cost him more than it would gain. With a dramatic sigh, she turned the phone over and handed it to him. Her messages were open. The last one said, "Miss you too. Can't stop thinking about Saturday. IB." Malik's whole body stiffened. IB. Those initials weren't random. They meant one thing, one person, Idris, his brother. He looked at her. "Is something going on?" Amira's face crumbled instantly. Her voice cracked, her lip trembled, and within seconds, tears. "You really think I would do that to you, after everything we've built? After the way your family welcomed me?" She stood up, voice shaking, hands moving, turning the moment on its head. "I knew it," she whispered. "I knew you'd never fully trust me. I knew I'd never be enough for you. You think I'm just like them, just like the women who hurt you before." She sank to the floor in tears. Malik's heart split right down the middle. He didn't know what to believe. Every part of him was screaming to push, to press her, to call Idris right there and demand the truth. But instead he knelt beside her, put his arms around her, apologized, over and over. He said he was just scared, that his mind had been playing tricks on him, that maybe he was just projecting old wounds onto something pure. And Amira, she leaned into his chest and whispered, "Don't ever doubt us again." And just like that, she won. Again. What Malik didn't realize was that manipulation doesn't always come in harsh words or angry tones. Sometimes it shows up in tears, in carefully timed stories, in the use of your deepest insecurities against you. Amira knew where his scars were, and she pressed on them with a gentle hand. And Malik? He mistook the pain for healing. If you're still watching, ask yourself something. Have you ever apologized for something you knew deep down wasn't your fault? Have you ever ignored a red flag because your heart was too tired to start over? And if you're the type of person who's felt that kind of emotional blindness, you know how dangerous love can be when trust becomes a weapon. If this is hitting close to home, don't just scroll. Click the subscribe button now. Stay with us. Because this isn't just Malik's story. It's a reflection of too many lives we're afraid to talk about. And if you still won't subscribe, then go to the comments right now and tell us why. Because if this were you, watching your life slowly unravel while the person you trusted most hides behind tears and silence, would you even see it happening before it was too late? The signs were there. Malik just didn't want to see them, but soon he wouldn't be able to look away. The morning of the wedding felt almost too perfect. Sunlight spilled gently across the hotel balcony where Malik stood in his tailored navy blue tux. The air had that quiet stillness, the kind that only exists early in the day, before emotions take over and chaos begins. For a moment, everything felt still, grounded, calm. Downstairs, vendors were already setting up. The decorators were stringing white roses around the arch. Aunties were fussing over centerpieces, nieces were running around with flower crowns, and uncles were arguing about who brought the best champagne. Laughter floated down the hallway like music. It felt like something sacred was finally happening. A new chapter, a beginning. Malik was quiet, as always, taking it in, reflecting. He thought about his mother. He wished she could have seen this day, wished she could have met Amira, wished she could have seen the man he'd become. He'd survived heartbreak. He'd survived loneliness. And now, he was finally here, at peace. Or so he thought. His brother Idris popped in and out that morning, cracking jokes, hyping Malik up like he always did. "You ready, little bro? You sure you ain't gonna pass out when you see her walk down the aisle?" Malik just smiled. "I'm ready." But deep inside, something felt off. It wasn't fear. It wasn't cold feet. Malik wasn't the kind of man to second-guess himself, but still, there was something he couldn't name, like a voice whispering behind the noise of the day. And then, at exactly 11:13 a.m., as Malik sat alone tying his shoes, his phone buzzed. One new message. No contact name, just a number he didn't recognize. The message read, "She's not who you think she is. Go to room 204. He froze, read it again, then stared at the number. No area code he recognized, no hint of who it could be from. His heart rate started to climb, but he told himself, ignore it. This is your day. People always try to mess with what they don't understand. Haters, exes, jealous friends, just noise. He put the phone down, took a deep breath, picked it back up. The message was still there. "She's not who you think she is. Go to room 204. He stared at it for a full minute. His hands were shaking now, not from nerves, from something deeper. That quiet voice inside him was screaming. He looked at the time. 11:15. The ceremony was at 1. He stood up slowly, looked at himself in the mirror, adjusted his tie, picked up his room key, and walked out the door. The hallway was silent, just the hum of air vents and the muffled sound of gospel music playing from someone's phone a few doors down. He passed room 208, then 206, then stopped in front of 204. The door looked like any other door, but something about it felt heavy, final, like whatever was behind it wasn't just going to change his day, it was going to change everything. He knocked once. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. His hand trembled as he reached for the handle. It was unlocked. He opened the door slowly, and what he saw would turn his entire wedding day into something else entirely. If you've made it this far and your heart is racing, even just a little, ask yourself this. What would you do if everything you trusted, everything you loved, was suddenly one unlocked door away from the truth? If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Because what happens next is the kind of betrayal most people only see in movies. But for Malik, it was real. It was raw. It was the moment the rest of his life bent in a direction he never saw coming. And if for some reason you're still not ready to subscribe, go ahead, head to the comments and explain why. Because if you were standing in front of that door, phone in hand, and that message came through to you, would you go in? Or would you walk away, never knowing? Malik opened that door, and what he saw inside would rip his world apart. The door creaked open. Room 204 was dimly lit, curtains halfway drawn, the scent of perfume lingering in the air, mingled with something else. Sweat, heat, sin. Malik stepped in, one foot after the other, not knowing that with each step, he was walking deeper into the death of everything he believed in, and then he saw them, Amira, Idris, his fiancé, his brother, together, not in conversation, not in a misunderstanding, not in some innocent, unfortunate circumstance that could be explained. No, there was no explanation here. She was on her knees. He was standing over her. The look on their faces said it all. Not guilt, not sorrow, just panic. They hadn't expected to be caught. The moment froze. For them. For Malik. For the boy who had learned to build his heart back up, brick by brick, only for the two people closest to him to swing the wrecking ball. For a second, nobody spoke. Even time held its breath. Idris, still zipped halfway down, stumbled back like a man who'd just seen death itself. Amira? She didn't cover up. She didn't cry. She didn't even say his name. She just stood there, staring, naked. Not just in skin, but in truth. Exposed. It was the first time Malik saw her for who she really was. Not the elegant, poised woman his family adored. Not the soft-spoken bride-to-be who whispered Bible verses at dinner and kissed his mother's photo every time they passed it. No. He saw her now, completely unmasked. And yet Malik didn't yell, he didn't curse, he didn't swing, he didn't cry. He just looked. His eyes moved from Idris to Amira, and back again. Two people who had been the core of his world, one by blood, one by choice. Both now etched in betrayal. He took one breath in, then slowly turned around, and walked out. Just like that. No words, no threats, no drama. Because sometimes silence is louder than a scream. Because some heartbreaks don't need to be shouted. They echo all on their own. As he walked down that hallway, every step felt like a funeral march, not for a relationship, not even for a wedding. But for the version of Malik that still believed in people, that still believed in loyalty, in love, in family. And behind that door, room 204, two souls stood still, no longer hidden, no longer pretending, no longer protected by lies. The damage was done. But Malik wasn't done, not even close. He walked past the guests, past the groomsmen, past the altar being decorated, past the laughter and joy and dancing and celebration. He walked with the calm of a man who had just buried something inside himself and sealed the casket tight. They thought he would break. They thought he would crumble. They didn't know Malik. Because revenge doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it walks quietly and waits for the perfect moment. Stay tuned, because what Malik does next will redefine the word payback. And if you're still watching, ask yourself something real. What would you have done? Would you have screamed? Would you have fought? Or would you have walked out like Malik, stone-faced, heart bleeding in silence, already planning what happens next? Because betrayal like this doesn't end with heartbreak. It ends with something far, far colder. The air outside was thick, hot, heavy, and somehow hollow. Malik stood there beneath the tall cathedral pillars, staring out over the crowd, the perfect mask of calm painted across his face. But inside, a war was raging, not the kind with screams or fists. No, this was something far more dangerous. This was the silence before the storm. The ceremony had begun. Guests were seated, smiling, fanning themselves gently, unaware of the volcano bubbling beneath the marble floors. The music played, a gentle melody of love and union. Lace and roses, white bows, polished pews. It looked like a fairy tale. But what was coming wasn't a wedding, it was a reckoning. And Amira? She walked down the aisle like nothing had happened. Chin high, smile perfect, veil in place. The audience gasped in awe, phones lifted to record her every step. Mothers wiped tears, aunties clutched their pearls. "She's so beautiful," someone whispered. Beautiful, maybe, but honest, pure, faithful, not even close. She walked that aisle as if room 204 never existed, as if minutes earlier she hadn't been caught in the most devastating betrayal imaginable, with the groom's own brother. She moved with the grace of a bride and the heart of a serpent. And waiting at the altar was Malik, standing tall, dressed in his finest, black tux, crisp collar, cufflinks glinting in the light. But this wasn't the same Malik from earlier. This wasn't the soft-hearted man who apologized even when she manipulated him. This wasn't the boy who forgave out of fear of losing her. No. This was a man reborn in fire. A man who saw the truth and chose silence not out of weakness, but precision. He didn't stop the ceremony. He didn't cancel the vows. He stood there, waiting. Amira reached him. Their eyes met. And for a fraction of a second, just one, her smile twitched, because behind that veil she knew. Something was off. Malik wasn't shaking, wasn't smiling, wasn't even blinking. He was too calm, and that's when the fear started to set in. The pastor welcomed everyone. "The union of Malik and Amira," he said with joy in his voice, "is a sacred one." Guests leaned forward, eager. Cameras flashed. The live stream rolled. Thousands tuned in online. And Malik? He took her hand, cold, trembling slightly. But still she kept her composure, because she still thought, maybe he didn't see everything. Maybe he hadn't seen enough to ruin it. Maybe, just maybe, she could still pull this off. But Amira didn't know. That silence is often a warning, a signal, a gathering of power. And Malik was gathering, waiting. Because the stage wasn't just hers now, it was his too. Everyone waited for the vows, and Malik stepped forward to speak. But it wasn't the vow anyone was expecting. Not a promise of love, not a declaration of forever. No. What came next would split the room in two, would burn through every lie, would stain this wedding day in a way that no one could ever forget. And if you're still watching this story and haven't subscribed, ask yourself, why? Why would you watch a man's soul break, rebuild, and rise, and not support the story unfolding in front of you? Subscribe now, because what Malik does next will leave your jaw on the floor. And if you won't, go to the comments and tell us why. We'll wait, because the storm is about to begin. The altar, it's meant to be a place of union, of promise, of forever. But today, this altar was about to become a stage, not for love, but for vengeance, not for joining, but for judgment. Malik stood tall, gripping the microphone. The pastor had just finished his warm words, the audience brimming with emotion. Amira beamed beside him, still playing the role, still gripping tightly to the lie, still hoping that whatever was bothering Malik would pass. But deep down, she felt it, the tension in his hand, the storm behind his eyes, and then he spoke. "Before I say I do," he paused, looked around. "I have something to show you all." The audience went still. Phones slowly lowered, smiles faded. Even the organist stopped playing. Amira's face twitched. Idris, sitting proudly in the front row, shifted in his seat, suddenly alert. The bridesmaids glanced at each other, whispered, "What is he talking about?" And then Malik reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, took a breath so deep it felt like he was pulling strength from generations. He tapped the screen, once, and just like that, room 204 came to life. Gasps filled the air. On the giant projector behind the altar, intended for wedding slideshows, baby pictures, and love notes, there it was, the video, raw, unedited, brutal. Amira, on her knees, Idris, shirt halfway off, both caught in the act. Malik had turned his phone camera on the second he stepped into that room earlier that day. He didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't even confront them. He recorded. Because he knew this moment would come. And now, the entire wedding hall saw it. They saw what betrayal looks like when it has a face, when it has a name, when it wears a white dress and a fake smile. Screams erupted. Amira gasped, her hands covering her mouth, but it was too late. There was no rewinding this, no pretending, no escape. A woman in the second row dropped her glass. Malik's mother collapsed. Right there. She fainted from shock, her body falling limp as relatives rushed to her side. Some guests ran out, others stayed frozen, watching the footage in horror. Idris stood up fast, his face red, fists clenched, looking for the nearest exit. But the ushers were already at the door. Malik had planned everything. They blocked Idris from leaving. "Sit," one of them said coldly. He sat. And Malik? He stood there calmly, phone still in hand. Not a tear, not a stutter, just pure, unshakable truth. He turned back to the mic. "I loved you, Amira," he said. "I would have given you everything." He glanced at Idris. "And you were supposed to be my blood." The room was dead silent. No more whispers, no more music, no more illusions, just truth, raw, loud, echoing off the stained glass. "This wasn't just betrayal," Malik said. "This was a choice, made behind my back, again and again. And I'm not marrying into lies." He dropped the mic, not metaphorically, literally. It hit the floor with a thud that thundered through the building. The ceremony was over. The wedding was done. Not because the groom got cold feet, but because the groom had something far colder. Proof. Proof that love without loyalty is a trap. Proof that not everyone at your altar deserves to stand beside you. And Malik? He didn't just walk away. He walked away with dignity while exposing the people who tried to humiliate him behind closed doors. He took the pain and turned it into power. And as the guests began to leave, some in tears, some in shock, some recording for social media, the story was already spreading. This wasn't just a ruined wedding. It was a viral legend in the making. And Amira? She didn't walk down the aisle as a bride anymore. She walked back up it as a ghost of the woman people thought she was. And Idris? He couldn't even look anyone in the eye. Because sometimes, public shame is the only language betrayal understands. The wedding hall, once glowing with joy and the sweet sounds of celebration, had now descended into absolute chaos. What should have been a fairy tale was now a full-blown nightmare, and there was no waking up. The guests who hadn't already fled were shouting, gasping, some crying. People scrambled to comfort Malik's mother, still recovering from the shock of what she had just witnessed. The air felt heavy, like grief, betrayal, and rage had all taken a seat in the front row. And in the center of it all, Amira dropped to her knees. Her perfect white gown now stained with the weight of truth, mascara running down her cheeks, her lips trembling as she reached out toward Malik, voice cracking through the noise. "Please, Malik, I'm sorry. I didn't mean... Please don't leave me like this." But the man she once knew was gone. The Malik standing before her wasn't the sweet, soft-hearted groom who cried when she said yes. He was cold, hardened. Like betrayal had carved a new version of him from stone. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He simply watched, as the lie unraveled before everyone's eyes. Then came Idris, his face still flushed with shame. He tried to slink toward the exit, hoping to escape without a word. But their mother wasn't done with him. She pushed through the crowd with trembling hands, rage and heartbreak pouring from her eyes. And then, smack, a slap so loud it silenced the room again. The kind of slap that didn't just sting skin. It shattered legacy. It said, "You didn't just betray your brother. You destroyed your family." "You are no son of mine," she screamed, voice cracking, her hands trembling as relatives tried to calm her. "You brought shame into this house. Get out." Idris stumbled back, shocked. No defense, no apology. Because what could he say? He had slept with his brother's bride. And now the price was being served in full. He was disowned right there, in front of the entire family. Security didn't even have to escort him. He walked out, alone. And Amira, still kneeling, still crying, still begging. But forgiveness wasn't coming, not today. 2 security guards stepped forward. Firm, silent, no hesitation. "Ma'am, we need you to leave," one said. She resisted, screamed, pleaded, but the guests had seen enough. The dress didn't make her a bride anymore. It was just fabric now, wrapped around a liar. The guards grabbed her arms, gently but firmly, and began walking her out. Her heels scraped the floor as she shouted Malik's name. "Please, I love you! Malik, please!" But Malik didn't flinch. She was thrown out of the venue, just like the lies she tried to keep hidden. And now, silence again. A strange, almost haunting stillness. People whispered, phones buzzed. The story was already on social media. Malik just stood there. No speech, no breakdown, just breathing. But he wasn't finished. Because betrayal isn't something you walk away from cleanly. It stays with you. It haunts you. It follows you into the next chapter. And Malik? He wasn't going to let this be the final page. No, because as the dust settled and the broken pieces of what should have been a perfect day lay shattered across the floor, he turned to the crowd once more. Not to beg, not to cry, but to speak. Because Malik wasn't done yet. He had one more truth to reveal. And this time, it wouldn't just expose what they did to him. It would show the world what happens when you try to break a man built from loyalty. As the last screams echoed and Amira's sobs faded into the hallway. As Idris disappeared from the family's eyes like a ghost expelled from a sacred house. Malik stood tall, centered beneath the arch of what should have been his altar. But instead of flowers, there was wreckage. Instead of wedding bells, there was the quiet hum of realization washing over every guest in the room. And then he moved, not out of pain, but with purpose. He stepped forward, picked up the microphone again, this time not as a groom, not as a victim, but as a man reborn. His voice? Calm, clear, commanding, no trembling, no anger, just peace, like someone who had been set free. He looked out across the sea of stunned faces and said, "This isn't a tragedy. This is a rebirth. I almost married a lie, but now I walk away a free man." The room went silent. No clapping, no murmurs, just respect. Because in that moment, even those who came just for the rice and pictures knew they had witnessed something sacred, a man choosing dignity over destruction, honor over humiliation. And just like that, Malik didn't storm out. He didn't run, didn't cry, didn't curse the heavens or throw one last punch. He simply turned, removed the boutonniere from his lapel, dropped it on the floor like the last tear he'd ever shed for Amira, and walked, but not alone, because just beyond the aisle, his best friend waited, loyal, steady, eyes filled with quiet pride. They exchanged no words, because real brothers don't need to say much. Sometimes just a nod says everything. "I got you. Let's go." And so, shoulder to shoulder, they walked through the crowd. Guests stepped aside, not out of pity, but reverence. No music played, and yet somehow every footstep Malik took echoed louder than any church organ ever could. He passed the cake that would never be cut, the gifts that would never be opened, the ring that would never be worn. He walked past the dreams that had died and into a future he never expected, but now fully owned. And when he reached the doors, he paused, turned one last time to face the room that had seen everything, and he smiled, not out of arrogance, not to mock, but because freedom always wears a smile. And then he left, not a broken man, but a man who had taken the sharpest betrayal life could offer, and turned it into power. That was Malik's final act, and some would say it was more beautiful than any wedding could ever be. Time passed, but not in the way it usually does after a wedding. Because for Malik, this wasn't the end of a love story. It was the beginning of a war he never asked to fight, a war against silence, shame, and self-betrayal. He didn't spiral. He didn't seek revenge. He went quiet, and in that quiet, he found purpose. 6 months after the wedding that wasn't, Malik launched something unexpected, a podcast. Not just any podcast, but one for men like him. Men who had been lied to, broken, betrayed. Men who smiled in photos but bled behind closed doors. Men who had no safe space to speak. He called it Unspoken. Each episode, raw, honest, brutally real. He talked about what it meant to question your worth after someone chooses someone else. What it feels like to wonder if your own brother ever respected you. What it does to your mind when trust becomes a weapon used against you. And as his voice traveled through earbuds, car radios, and quiet bedrooms across the world, thousands of other voices began to whisper back, "That happened to me too. Thank you for saying it. You saved me from marrying my own lie." While some run from pain, Malik sat in his, not to drown in it, but to make sure no other man would ever feel alone again. And Amira? She vanished. Changed her name, moved cities, tried to start fresh, but digital footprints don't erase shame, and whispers follow louder when you walk alone. Some say she's dating again. Some say she joined a church and found redemption. Others say she still checks Malik's profile from a burner account at night. No one knows the truth, but everyone knows why she left. As for Idris, he tried, sent long messages, wrote letters Malik never opened, even showed up to the podcast studio once just to say, "I'm sorry." But Malik never let him in again, and not out of hatred, but because healing has boundaries. And sometimes the most powerful act of self-love is choosing who never gets access to your peace again. And if you've made it this far, if this story hit even one nerve, then ask yourself something honestly. If you knew this could happen to you, if you knew you could fall for someone wearing a mask, if you knew the people closest to you might be hiding knives behind their backs, wouldn't you want to be ready? Wouldn't you want to hear stories like this before you walk into your own room 204? Then don't just scroll away like it didn't shake something in you. Subscribe right now, because betrayal doesn't knock, it crashes through the door. And the only way to see it coming is by learning from the people who didn't. And for the few who still won't subscribe, go to the comments right now. Tell us why. Explain to the rest of us why you chose to look away when life was holding up a mirror. Tell Malik. Tell the thousands of voices who are finally unsilencing their pain why you didn't think it was worth hitting that button. We'll wait. But something tells me you'll be back. The dust has long settled. The venue is empty. The chairs have been folded, the petals swept, and the chaos that once echoed through the hall, now just a memory that lives in whispers. But Malik? He stands still in the aftermath, no longer a broken groom, but a rebuilt man, and in his own voice, clear and steady, he reflects. Sometimes, betrayal doesn't ruin you, it reveals you. Because that day, that wedding, wasn't the end of a relationship. It was the beginning of something deeper, a revelation, a peeling back of every false layer, every illusion, every comforting lie he used to wrap himself in. And what remained was truth, a hard truth, an ugly truth, a necessary truth. When the person you love hurts you, he says, that pain doesn't disappear. It becomes your power. It sharpens your senses, toughens your spirit, and teaches you to stop begging people to stay who were always planning to leave. He says, I learned that peace doesn't come from perfect endings. It comes from the courage to walk away when everything inside you is screaming to stay. I used to think love was about holding on. Now I know, real love is knowing when to let go. And maybe that's the lesson so many of us never hear until it's too late. That heartbreak isn't your enemy, it's your turning point. It's the moment you stop chasing validation in others and start finding security in yourself. Think about the version of Malik that entered room 204. Now think about the version who walked away from that altar. They aren't the same man. One was hopeful, maybe naive. The other, he's clear-eyed, he's still, he's grounded. He knows now that love built on secrets will always collapse. He knows now that family can be your deepest wound. And he knows that healing doesn't always look like forgiveness. Sometimes healing is silence, distance, boundaries that don't bend, and he's okay with that. He sleeps now, without tossing, without texting, without wondering where she is or who she's with. Because when you stop asking why someone hurt you, you make room to ask a far more powerful question. What did this pain come to teach me? And so, Malik, once a groom betrayed in the most public way, now walks in peace. Not bitterness, not revenge. Peace. He doesn't need Amira's apology. He doesn't crave Idris's remorse. He has something they lost the moment they chose deception. Self-respect. The wedding never happened, but a transformation did. And sometimes, the best day of your life is the one you thought would ruin you. Now pause. Take a deep breath. Let the silence settle in your chest for just a moment. And ask yourself, if you were Malik, standing there at that altar, knowing what you knew, holding that truth in your hands like a live grenade, what would you have done? Would you have walked away quietly, swallowed the betrayal, and kept the peace? Would you have exposed it all like Malik did, burning the bridge while the whole world watched? Or would you have done something different, something more savage, or something more forgiving? Because let's face it, not everyone would have had the strength to stand there and make that speech. To say, before I say I do, I have something to show you. Not everyone would have dared to turn heartbreak into performance, to weaponize truth, not with fists or violence, but with evidence and silence. So, what would you have done? Go down to the comments right now and tell us. Was this the ultimate revenge, or a missed chance for healing? Was Malik strong, or just strategic? Did he win, or did everyone lose? Your voice matters here. Your thoughts might even help someone who's going through something just like this. And if this story stirred something in you, if it made your heart race, your jaw clench, your eyes widen, if it made you remember your own version of Room 204, then don't just sit in silence. Tap that like button, and for the people who are watching right now and thinking, I'll subscribe later, let me ask you this. If a story like this can happen in a 5-star wedding hotel, behind closed doors, between a groom, a bride, and his own brother, what makes you think next week's story won't hit even closer to home? Because next week, we're diving into something even crazier. And to the few who still won't subscribe after all this, fine, go ahead. But you better be in the comments telling us why. Because if betrayal, secrets, and poetic justice like this doesn't earn your click, then maybe you've got your own Room 204 you're not ready to talk about yet. This was the story of a groom who caught his bride, giving herself to his brother, and returned to the altar, with the kind of revenge you don't recover from. And I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe. Before someone plays your secrets, on a projector, fade out.